What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. SEC Media Days have happened. The Sooners sounded sharp. BV was bringing it. Danny Stutzman specifically in that crimson and cream tie and jacket. It was elite days. Exciting times for the Sooners as they are now in the SEC. And this is kind of the culmination of what we've been waiting for, Jay. And let's just talk about some things that stood out at Media Days today. Before we get started, make sure you check out FanStop at thefanstop.com. You sign up for that Shirt of the Month Club. 10% off if you use code SURGE. And appreciate you watching the videos here at the Sooner Surge, Jay. What stands out to you today after SEC Media Days?
Well, you kind of mentioned the culmination, kind of been 2 to 3 years in the making. Since Brent Venables took over, he talked about it. This was the goal. Like, they're there now. The SEC is upon them. Season's here. It was really cool, I think. And if you watched it on ESPN and on the SEC Now, they were talking about how Brent was really respectful and paid a lot of respects to the SEC. And he pretty much talked about how difficult the conference is, how good the conference is. Wasn't up there just blabbing everything to Oklahoma's this. Very respectful. Got to give him kudos to that. But then also at the same time, not fearing anybody in the SEC. You know, Oklahoma is Oklahoma. They've won for a lot of years. So it's now their turn to see what happens on the field. Some things that stood out specifically to me, Jeremy, there was a few things. If you go back, I don't know if you were able to catch it, but after he did the press conference on the podium, he then came to the SEC Now little booth that had Dusty Dvorak and some other guys on it, was talking to them and really in-depth analysis on some things that he gave. One specifically, I thought he talked how excited and how good he thinks Oklahoma is in the middle, which we all knew that with Billy Bowman on defense, with Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, but he's super excited about the interior of the defensive line. And he mentioned 6 or 7 guys there. So they're going to be rolling through some guys. The other one was defensive backs. He brought up defensive backs specifically and said that's where he thinks they need to get the most improvement on from last year on defense. He said they've made the biggest strides in the offseason. Also talked about how, I'm going to paraphrase, but talked about how he can't scheme a defensive back into every play. He can't scheme everybody in there. Sometimes you got to be man-on-man and make a play. And it was a really cool kind of interaction with him about how he recruits guys, asking them if they want to play man-on-man or cover 2, because he wants guys that are ready to be on an island and be able to cover. And it sounds like they're getting a little bit more depth in that right now. Obviously they had a lot of injuries last year in the defensive backs when you look at Gentry Williams and other guys. So we'll see. Just a few things I think that stood out to me.
Yeah, and speaking of defensive backs, Gentry Williams fully released. BV kind of gave an update on some injuries. I thought it was interesting. Talked about Andrell Anthony is not fully released, but should get him the week first game of the year as far as practice week. Should be practicing by then. Same with Jalil Farouk. Everett, Jay. Everett's ahead of schedule. It sounds like that's good on the offensive line side of things because Everett is ahead of schedule, should be expected sooner rather than later. And Garen Hatchett has been fully released. That's big news on the offensive line, Jay. So again, I think that's good on the injury front to hear some of those things that BV talked about. I'm like you, Jay. I'm excited to see hearing what BV said about embracing and running towards the SEC. That is the mindset. That's the type of coach everyone wants heading into this league. And now, Jay, it comes time that you just got to back it up.
Yeah, and I love what Brent said. He didn't back off from it, and it's something I think anybody that talks OU football and where they need to be in the SEC, Brent Venables mentioned it probably 3 to 4 times. You have to win in the trenches. He knows it. Talked about the roster changeover since he took over and how many players they lost and how many, they've had to kind of rebuild that roster, how they're looking as far as heading into the SEC. Talked about you have to win more battles than you lose in the trenches, not only on the field, but in recruiting too. So he knows that's where you win or lose games in the SEC. He's not, you know why he knows that? Because he's beaten those teams on high-level games. at Clemson. He beat the SEC teams to win national championships. So he understands it. He embraces it. And I think one thing he said that was spot on is, last year they were 10-3 with the bowl loss. They had so many games that were so close, and the same thing's going to happen this year. You're going to have games go down to the final drive, and there's a small margin of error in some of those games where you could either be 8-4, 7-5, or 10-2 and 9-3. I mean, it is. It's a big, just a small little margin. So he recognizes that. He did talk about analysts. Somebody asked about the analysts being on the field. Talked about that. Talked about the helmet communication. I love what he kind of said on both of those aspects. He said sometimes on the analysts, sometimes more is not better. Depends on how you use them. Also said on the communication, sometimes too much in there is not a positive either. So just trying to balance that out. He did pretty much say a lot better advantage for the quarterbacks and offenses than it is for the defense. So,
yeah, I think that's kind of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago with these rule changes, that it does kind of benefit the offense. Overall, what I really love about BV, and really the guys that were there, Jay, really well spoken. You could sense the excitement to play up competition every single week, stiff competition. Danny Stutzman specifically talked about that they're ready for the challenge. And I love what BV said, almost a very Stoops-like quote, Jay, when he started talking about time will tell. We're not going to know. You can't simulate this at practices. We will know once we get into the season. He's not here to make excuses. He's ready to tackle this head on, and he's got the guys on his side that he wants. And it's a big reason, Jay, Bowman and Stutzman came back, and guys like Woody Washington, because this is the type that they wanted to play. They want to play in this kind of season to end their career at the University of Oklahoma, and it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, and one thing he said, too, with the SEC now, I thought – I kind of – last thing I say about today, but he was a little more, I think, maybe relaxed, or you're talking with guys that have played ball there on the SEC network, and he said, we got a lot of guys, really good players, a lot of guys. He goes, we're about ready to find out if we have dudes. And love that. They got guys right now. They look good. He's real confident. In game time, we'll see if they got dudes that can go make those plays.
And you only know when games start, which is going to be soon. Thanks again for watching the content here at the Sooner Surge. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Check out FanStop at thefanstop.com, and we'll catch you next time.